Hi everybody. Welcome to our session on Fashion Reimagined. The intent here today is to try and introduce you to some learnings from the post-COVID era for the fashion segment in the retail industry. We have a really esteemed panel, who are very experienced in this segment. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to touch upon a few points which are points of differentiation and going forward, the learnings from it. The last 1.5 years has been nothing short of a transformational period for all of us. From omni-channel strategies, to technology, to re-looking at the physical store strategy. It has been something of learning. So I'd just like to throw the panel open. And I'd like to hear from you first what your thoughts on the learnings for the fashion segment have been.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, fundamentally, as in how I've looked at the last 18 months is that if I look at the consumer, as in the consumer was changing anyway, probably a lot of us, especially on the fashion side of business, probably we were overlooking at it or we were not too serious in terms of the changes. We were too concentrated in terms of the divides of channels, of commercial models, of online, offline, but the consumer was never looking at that. What the pandemic brought to the forefront was that it made us realize that these changes are already happening. And then we were able to primarily, as in if I were to look at it, fast forward a lot of changes that we wanted to make in our business. It did also at the same time as in throw up newer opportunities, whether in terms of product categories, in terms of newer ways to reaching out to consumers. But at the same time, how I look at it is that a physical store per se, the primary reason for the store is to deliver a consumer experience to the consumer, and that's not going to change. So we are talking about dark stores, we are talking about click and collect, we are talking about omni-channel, but the reality is that the primary reason that you open a store is to deliver an experience to the consumer that cannot go away. If you try as in fooling yourself that my inventory, I can utilize it better, this, that, everything, those are, as in you have to utilize technology in a better manner, but your primary aim cannot change. You can, as in terms of store designs need to change, probably if you want to service online orders from stores, store sizes need to change. We've also seen based on geographies in terms of how, as in you want to spread out or expand across pin codes. So you have to leverage technology in a newer manner, in a manner that probably you didn't think about or you thought about, but you thought that the investments are too huge for it to make sense. That's my biggest take. I think the opportunities, the efficiencies that we have built in during the last 18 months or so are going to help us in terms of leveraging our businesses better over a period of time, for at least for the next 5 years. But very clearly, as in the future lies in terms of a combination of what we call as phygital, and what we need to ensure is that that primary, as in premise on which we are building our businesses in terms of how are we able to service our consumers better. This is another means. That is what we should look at. That's what I feel.
So, very interesting. Thank you so much. Rohit, your view on how the brands are re-looking at their physical store strategy post-pandemic?
I think there's a whole lot of huge learning that we are taking back, especially myself. I feel that while there's an online big play happening there, but there's a lot of learning in the offline world. One, we've learned to work with about 30–40% lesser stock and deliver higher sales. So, a big problem that all retailers have faced is sitting on too much stock. And this has shown an opportunity that you could still have less if you have the right categories and the right product for the customer. And then you can still have extremely profitable business with the same offline store. Similarly, with people, we are down by about 40% in terms of staffing, and we are still able to deliver higher growth. And so that also has allowed us to relook at how we were staffing our stores and how the service standards were at the store. The old school, probably pre-COVID thought of myself was that more the number of people in the store, more the number of people that can service a customer. But that probably I think we were way above the optimal there, and some of them was probably causing us customers not coming into the store.
So a question there would be, are these people who you are hiring now different from who you were hiring earlier? From a skill set perspective?
The quality of people is not different. It's just the number of people that we feel that we need has gone down. Sure. It was also helped and aided by the fact that there was restrictions in number of people coming into the store. So we also made sure that only people who were very serious about buying would walk in. So that allowed us to, get some gains, and we want to see how far we can take these gains and continue. We're not saying that we'll continue to remain at the same lower levels of staffing, but we're going to keep adding, very incremental short steps and not go back to the old level right away. Same is true with stock. And that itself, we see huge, massive bottom line and, gains that we've seen the efficiencies there.
Thank you so much. Your thoughts, Pankaj, on this? Moving from, you recently mentioned that you opened 5 stores and you plan to open 40 more stores. So how is this playing out? Does this have any learnings from the COVID times, or does it have just learnings of moving towards a more omni-channel or a, brick and mortar story?
I think we've all, so I've started from a very different journey from, others is predominantly because we are more digital first, and offline was something that we, kind of built on later. So I think last 1.5 years for us, it was literally essentials category in a digital environment. Of course, there was a huge, tailwinds that we got, and that we kind of utilized that. But over a period of time, as you kind of, as the brand evolves, there is also a certainty that you start to see in terms of how you get it closer to your end consumer, right? So one way is to reach the end consumer through the product, which of course you do day in and day out. That's what you do for a living. But then there is also an intent to get the brand closer to the end consumer. And I think a store plays a brilliant role there. And we have been predominantly, one of the few EBITDA profitable, online companies, right? So using offline stores as a marketing was never an option for us. So we always thought that doesn't make sense, right? And this is somebody who only has restricted amount of resources in terms of people, and you have to see where you deploy it best, right? So we said that let's start doubling down on our stores. Last 12 months, it has been a haze. The stores have literally gone 30% year-on-year growth for us. Of course, 2019 being the numbers, and we just opened 5 new stores. There's a 40+ stores that we have planned in the coming year, and the whole thought process has kind of changed just from brand getting closer to the end consumer to actually delivering profitability as well to the end business, which I think is a great game. But a little caveat there is that our predominant business has grown from almost 50 to 60% from a tier 2, tier 3. So early contribution was 50%, now it's 60%. And our focus towards building stores is also there. So we want to take the whole a global feel and a global experience in a small store in a tier 2, tier 3 environment, and that's kind of contributing a lot to build that story further.
So considering that, you're a technology-based platform, is there some sort of technology that we're bringing into the stores which is different from what people experience? And if we can just talk about that a little bit.
I think it's bonkers. I mean, to the extent that, and someday I'm going to do a demo to the big daddies and get their feedback on it. What we have done is that what we started realizing, right, there is a huge ability, and everybody's been trying to do that. How do you optimize your space? Because there are 40 sizes in my category, it becomes all the more complex, So your shelf space is, it's literally like gold. You cannot make any mistakes there. So we built a store planning engine, right? And that engine basically kind of takes care of, so if I have just 200 pieces and there are 5 stores, and I can only contribute to just 2 stores from this, then how do I end up doing that? So we have gone all the way to the depths of saying that if you, so we are predominantly lingerie business, right? So for example, the sets sell better, so a bra and brief of the same color together will sell better than them individually. That, how much is the distance, so that the logistic time is minimized. Going all the way back to whether it's a new store, old store. So I think there are around 40 odd different levers that we decide, which we decide the store planning. And of course, it is new for us. It's a very different way of kind of building things together. But we are finding a very beautiful mix of traditional learnings and new age technology. I think somewhere in that intersection is where the gold lies, and we'll keep digging till we find it.
Perfect. Thank you. Mervyn, over to you. Anything that you'd like to share with us from a global perspective on, we still see that technology adoption within the stores is at a nascent stage. well, everyone's moving towards it, but from a customer experience perspective, is there something that you feel that, you know, we could learn from our global counterparts?
Yeah, I think the first lesson for me after the pandemic for businesses has been agility in terms of adapting to new situations. I think offering the choice is super important for the customer, whether it's non-presence of physical stores in tier 2 or tier 3 cities, for example, or another pandemic, God knows. But offering that possibility to consume, I mean, luxury consumption continues, the show must go on, whether it's online or offline, but I think businesses have been great in adapting to this new phygital environment. But to be honest, from a luxury consumption perspective, I think you cannot remove the experience from you know, the whole purchase activity. It is a reward purchase and people want to have the in-store experience. I mean, another example is fashion shows, fashion weeks. Everybody was talking about, oh, it's all going to be avatars, it's all going to be robots wearing the collection, but we've seen in Europe all the fashion weeks have gone back physically as soon as they could. And that whole ritual of luxury fashion has come back. So I think it's all about agility, and it's all about offering a seamless experience, whether it's online or offline, whenever the needs comes. So yeah.
Faraz, over to you. What do you think about the marriage between you know, physical stores? You run them all yourself. So what do you think about the marriage, on how, you know, how important it is and how retailers could adapt better post-pandemic?
Okay, so in the last, when we look at this period, when we are all talking about this because of the last, what happened in the last 2 years. So what happened in the last 2 years was a very rapid change. The changes which were anyway about to happen, but maybe it would take maybe another 10 years, but that happened in another just 1.5 years. So it just caused a turbulence, and people are all, you know, so much confused on how things are changing. But I'll say that now, take this month or last month, maybe like a few months post all these lockdowns and all, you can see how things are a little bit neutralizing. So online was definitely, when the stores are closed and people are all in this COVID mode, definitely it has a very unnatural, I'll say something which is not it's not a saturated level. So these things will come to saturation, and definitely online is very important, and online is anyway was coming to the retail scenario, and it is a digital touch point, very important digital touch point. And I'll say again, like online sales, offline sales is not just two things, because it is a part of the customer journey. It is a part of you know, all the touch points where a customer reaches a purchase decision. So it will definitely go hand in hand. But what has happened in the store now, even if the sales are increasing, or you can see most of the brands, even when we tell this also, the sales have increased from the 2019 levels for almost all the brands. At least 10 to 20% increase is there for almost all the brands. So, but what a customer expects from a store and what a brand has to provide in a store is different. Yeah. Earlier, like how Rohit was saying, it was maximum of selling, like the maximum racks you fill in a showroom, maximum salesman you have, and just sell. So that definitely will not happen. That there are easier options to, you know, for a customer. But what customer needs is an experience, and like you said, maybe lesser staffs, lesser chaos in the store, more feel of the brand should be, you know, given to the customer. So for that perspective, it will definitely be there. It is needed for a brand to be what it is, and it will go hand in hand. That is what I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Over to you again. You know, you mentioned about omni-channel. You mentioned very interesting that you've seen a growth in WhatsApp shopping. So are there any other such parts where you've seen changes or growth in shopping patterns, or changes or things that a lot of us would not know about how we could shop better or easier?
So I think as in WhatsApp commerce or conversational commerce is one way that we have looked at it. On the online space, again, as in social commerce is something that's the biggest thing now. Click and collect, as in selling from stores, is something that has come up. But I think the bigger change has also happened in terms of how we were as in approaching the consumer. I think with the pandemic, bigger focus has again gone back to the consumer, and the focus has also gone back on the product. So it's not like that we were trying to, as Rohit also said, just fill up the store and trying to sell. Now it's also about in terms of, is this the right sort of product that the consumer would want and would pick up? Focus is again more in terms of storytelling. So I think there's a whole lot of change from a brand's perspective when we are looking at our whole proposition to the consumer. And the second thing that's changing is that, as in when we were developing product, when we were trying to develop ways and means to sell that product, we were always thinking offline. Now what has happened is that we are thinking of the consumer as a whole. We are saying that as in it's his or her prerogative whether he's going to shop online or offline. Am I able to give that same, as in terms of experience, the same sort of information to that consumer? So whether as in simple things, as in something that I was able to convey through a product tag in a physical environment, how am I able to do it through content in an online environment? So smaller nuances, I think that's where, as in I think the whole thing wherein we are thinking digital, that's the bigger change. So focus on consumer, focus on product, and then the whole process that we were in terms of what we call as go-to-market, I think that's where changing. And I think somewhere the consumer is benefiting because they are able to experience those differences. Probably that is one of the reasons wherein we are seeing this growth for the last 3 months, because probably we have also become better in terms of giving those experiences to the consumers.
Thank you so much. Rohit, you mentioned a very interesting point about inventory, which also leads to the thought of sustainability, which is something which is ghosting the fast fashion industry. You know, the thought around sustainability, the Gen Z and the millennials, they are your consumers, and they are constantly worried about what happens to the piles of clothes that go into the dump yard. At the same time, there's a lot of talk about, you know, second-hand luxury, which is picking up all over the world. Lots of platforms selling it. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I believe that being able to work with lower inventory is, and that byproduct of that is, somewhere, suits that purpose of, and also serves that purpose of sustainability. And the learning there has been, like Manish was saying, that earlier we were trying to sell to all the footfall in the store, but we now been able to figure out what the customer set of that footfall wants, and what are those few things that fewer customers still buy in our store when they walk in, and they still end up achieving the same kind of numbers that we were doing last year. That has told us what all we can do away with and not have in our stores as inventory, which we were probably trying to keep there just for that one guy who would walk through, 10 people who would walk through the day and one of them would buy. And I think we are able to filter that out and just stick to, so we've seen that our stores have become far more spacious. They're giving an environment, an experience which is a little more relaxed. And yes, with lower stock, we are focusing primarily on the products that there is a demand for, that customer is ready to pay that price and that premium for. And there the learning has been, to put it in very simple words, in the low, medium, and high price range, the low still works to attract, and the high is where your top customers are. The medium is where we were putting all the, a lot of that mess, that excess inventory was all sitting in that medium wala zone, when there's no clarity, and that's where that whole pile up was. And I think we've done away with that with those lower sell-throughs, and our sell-throughs are up 6, 7, 8% points, in the season. So that definitely is also, and the byproduct of that is helping, lower product in the store, in process, helping the sustainability approach.
Mervyn, your thoughts on sustainability where it comes to both luxury and fast fashion?
Yeah, so that's a big one. I think it's really important that we don't mix the two when we talk about sustainability. I think it's completely two different ball games, and it's interesting to see many more brands are having to engage in what we call now responsible fashion, in terms of it's not just about the planet, but it's also about people, social responsibility, and profits as well. So the new term that we are using is responsible fashion, and making sure that companies or brands are producing responsibly, distributing responsibly, and consumers are also consuming responsibly. That's a big one. I mean, overconsumption, there's no secret. Buy less, buy better, and you know, reuse, resell. You talked about luxury and resale. I was also surprised to see that it's picking up in India. I've met a few brands, you know, self-started who are doing really well actually in the luxury sector and resale. But sustainability is huge. It's not a choice anymore. It's not about greenwashing. It's about really being super transparent. And we are dealing with a generation who, compared to the millennials, they did voice out a lot, we say, but Gen Z, they show up. They go to the protest, they come in front of your stores, they are not afraid to go out and protest. So they are not just informed, but they are also very active in the whole process. So it's great to see a lot of brands doing a lot of efforts, and also at school we teach sustainability, responsibility in the whole curriculum, from fashion business to even fashion styling and fashion design. For example, we introduced Cloth 3D, which is a software to make sure that we do not waste too much in pattern cutting materials, etc. So students are designing everything digitally and then producing it. So, you know, it's something that we need to do together.
We need to start young.
Yes, absolutely. And it's all about education.
I can see you want to add something to that.
So I think the bigger change that we have seen, or I have seen, is that for the first time, especially from an Indian context, as in whenever we were talking about context, as in terms of concepts like green cotton or organic cotton or any of these things, as in it was always the brand as in trying to propagate something wherein the consumer wasn't bothered. They were always looking at more of functional aspects in terms of, does it add some value in terms of fashion, does it add some value in terms of comfort, and that was the only way that they were able to accept that product or pay a premium for it. What I see a change, and this started happening probably pre-pandemic also, but pandemic again, as in terms of magnified it, is the consumer today is very, very focused or is conscious about in terms of where is the product made, how is the product made, is it environmental friendly, as in how can I as in ensure that once I use it, it goes to the right sort of channels in terms of it being used again. I think that's a bigger change that's coming in from the consumer side, and the consumers are ready to pay a premium for that. So I think that's the bigger change, and as in Melvin spoke about Gen Z, and I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I'll give you an anecdote, as in we shifted to a new office, and the service provider there as in gave us a set of pencils which had some seeds at the back, and you could plant the pencil and you could grow a plant from it. And she saw this, and then she said that this is a good company. So I think of Generation Alpha, as in they are the ones as in who are going to be the consumers of tomorrow, and this is a thought process that they have. So I think this is something which we were trying to do, or we were trying to make a marketing story out of it up till now, but slowly as in the consumer is going to force us to have it as a basic bare minimum. I think that's the change that's coming through.
Thank you. Pankaj, any closing remarks on this, or closing remarks on?
I think it's almost covered, right? But I think the only thing that I can add is that every brand worth its salt, you know, which has thrived or even survived, takes cue from the customers. And I think today the customer's queue is so strong that there is no way out, right? I mean, so it's not something that you're adorning as a new thing you're doing. If you have to survive or thrive again, you will have to, you know, change yourself. So I think, for example, a very small change, just to add, you know, we as a, and again, you know, we are a young company, so for us, every cost matters and stuff, right? We just went to net plastic zero as an organization. So we quantified the amount of plastic that is getting generated, right? And of course, there's a lot of math going around, how do we reduce that? And we got hold of a company which basically recycles the same amount, and we kind of fund that. So I think every company, and this is not something which you're even taking to the end consumer, because if you have to make that change, it will have to start at your soul, right, before it actually starts to project outwards. So I think every brand will have to go not just from an outward, presentation of it, presentation of it, it will also have to go all the way inward, of what you're doing.
So just closing remarks from you, Rohit, on how we could, look at the post-pandemic fashion industry and, just 3 learnings that we could take away from there.
Well, we've been looking at this whole pandemic and the slowdown and the actions we took as a reset of the business. And it's allowed us to, go back and look at the very basics, that start listening to your customers again, because we were believing that we were listening to them, but all these years we realized we weren't necessarily, because that medium kept going high because we weren't clearly, aware of what people were wanting. So I think that's the only takeaway, that go back to listening to your customers, and this reset has allowed us to make the business healthier and now build on that. So that's the only thing.
Faraz, what about you?
Hello. Yeah. This again, like this it has. Sorry, about sustainability. If you're asking again, it's a normal thing across industries. So in fashion, how it is coming is a different. It's not different from any other industry also. So as a company, it's not, people value being sustainable. That's true. That's how they have told. And like he said, we are back to looking at customer, what customer demands, and sustainability is one such thing. And again, like we were discussing earlier, like product, like people have started to look into products more deeper now, what a customer needs, and yeah, that's the main change now.
Anything from a closing remark perspective on how you feel fashion should grow or do in your mall, or anything that you feel brands could change?
That's what. So the way they use a retail store is definitely the one main thing that should be changed. So changes were happening like it all. So, but understanding the customer and what they want is the most important thing. Giving experience. So, for example, like there are some brands which have changed their showrooms into more of a lounge kind of setup. Give coffee inside and give a connection. So that people do not always purchase from the store, but of course it's like a privileged thing that they are a customer of this brand. So that feeling is one thing that they get out of the mall, out of the store. And from malls perspective, when we say malls totally itself, we are changing into more of experience centers rather than a shopping this thing. So again, for a retailer now, retailer also similarly, it is inside the store. It should be more of an experience rather than just a selling point. So, yeah.
So I think there's a lot of focus from a lot of retailers to kind of build stores for the future. So any thoughts around that?
Yeah, so in shopping malls, how we are going is one thing is that the percentage of entertainment, that is definitely every mall developer now would be looking at a higher percentage of entertainment and experience in the malls. Because people are coming to mall not just to shop, they are just coming as an outing, maybe with friends, families or something, just to spend some time. In this, while people spend the time in the mall, they of course have food, entertainment, everything. They go to the brands if they want to purchase something, or they randomly go to some stores where they want to connect, where they have their, where they are normally a customer, so that, they need to feel, have an inclusive feeling with the brand also. So retail in fashion, I think a proportion inside the mall is actually coming down only. Like store resizing, when we say stores might be a little lesser in size, but and of course they'll not use the entire area to display and for sale also. It will be more of experience. But so as a mall, when we say this is the change in the total scenario that we'll see.
Mervin?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, they talk about retailtainment now in terms of people going to stores for an experience. And I love what Andy Warhol said a few years ago, well, quite a few years ago, about the stores of the future being museums and museums becoming stores. And we've already seen this in Europe, where brands are focusing on having more of this experience and you know, and rituals in stores rather than the whole purchase thing. The purchase is just a transactional activity that could happen, you know, from a QR code, we were talking about this before, and get it delivered at home. But the store is really just for the experience and creating that long-term emotional and sensual connection with the consumer. That's what brings loyalty, I think. And in terms of, sorry, the other point was?
The physical stores, building stores for future.
Yeah. The stores of the future, yes. So that was I think that's the store of the future, really. And in terms of space or, you know, connection to art, using the space for installations or pop-up activities, I think that's the future of luxury stores. Yeah.
Pankaj.
So I think one interesting closing remark is that the customer has, you know, last 2 years has made the customer and us as humans very impatient, right? So everybody's on a short fuse. So take care of your customer, do it very fast, do it absolutely immaculately, and don't screw up. I think that's the biggest learning I've had in the last 18 months.
Thank you so much.
So, as in terms of stores of the future, for me, as in, I think I said it at the start, as in we have to be very, very clear as to, in terms of defining as to what does the store, what do we want the store to do. So do we want to deliver an experience? Do we want to just do sales? Do we want to do online? Do we want to do offline? As in, the basis that you need to decide as in whether you need a bigger box or a smaller box, or what is the right sort of box that works for you. I think important thing is that as a learning is that apart from as in being focused on your consumer and delivering that right sort of product to them, how are you able to leverage technology? How are you able to leverage the changes that are happening around the consumer, and then delivering that experience to the consumer, whichever space that you operate, whether you're online, whether you're offline, whether you're in a multi-brand, your own site, on a platform, your own store. I think that's where the whole story lies. That's where the future is.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I would like to thank you for all the insights. Any questions from anybody in the audience for the panelists? Do we have any questions? So I would say that would be it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the audience. And thank you so much to the esteemed panelists for sharing your insights.